Good morning and welcome back to God's Golden Acres. I'm Kim and today I'm going to show you how I set up my container garden, because this might be your victory garden, just like the video that I made about a week ago, I would say. I found another container. So it was full of water. So there's already a couple holes drilled in it, but I want to show you the tools I use and then also the placement that I put them. So there's mud on the bottom of this, simply because I literally just emptied it from rainwater and it like soaked its underneath. And I'm not really gonna rinse that off. It'll dry and shake off eventually. The inside's fairly clean because I did have to like swish and dump out that rainwater. But I don't put holes in the bottom. Many people put like a hole here, 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 and here. I want that bottom layer to be pretty wet and then drain out the sides. So I put holes about right here. Using a drill bit, I use about a medium size. You don't want it to be too small because you want it to drain fairly quickly, but too big and you could possibly lose some dirt, especially if you have fine dirt. So you can see the holes there. I didn't count them, but there's quite a few to provide drainage. And some people say you want a bottom hole for drainage to prevent root rot. These are such tall containers that I'd actually rather that to hold water, and then when it gets a little bit drier, then the water will soak up through the dirt, because water likes to be even. If you just compare these two containers, there's a good inch difference in their size. That one back there is quite a bit shorter, and we have the same method going on there. In that rose bush, it has a bottom spout that allows you to water just the bottom layer of dirt. There's no hole in the bottom. And that spout will then also help drain it if it gets too much. Now these grow bags quite a bit shorter, and of course they're fabric, so water will come out the bottom. So I'm not worried about that. I mean, I haven't drained these. Now this over here is suffering because it's been so hot. I mean, it really should have been watered 3 or 4 times a day, but then you risk burning all of your plants. It was crazy hot. Now I'm not going to fill this entire container on camera, and partially because we got rain suddenly last night on a surprise, and now it's too wet to get the tractor out, because I'm not doing this all by hand, but we need to wait until later this evening to get the tractor out and get more dirt for this bucket. But we can do a few things to reduce the amount of dirt that we need, like throwing some sticks in there. It gives just a little bit of structure to the dirt, gives something to break down. You can go, you might be able to see how soft this is. But I'm like squishing it. So that'll break down fairly quickly and add nutrients to the soil that the roots can go down and get. Also helps hold water. So you can fill your container a little bit with this. Those one sticks I probably should break in half. But put that along the bottom, it'll break down, add nutrients to your soil. Then you can put just a very basic dirt or something on about the bottom 3/4, and then fill the other quarter with topsoil, and then top dress with compost. I rarely fill something with compost. These little containers I did, if you're growing in like a 5-gallon bucket, I would up that ratio of compost because this is like the nutrients your plants have. That's it. And of course you can water with compost teas and stuff throughout the year, and you should, but these containers should be mostly dirt, because the compost will work its way down, and then that reduces your cost. Workload too, because like right now we can't scoop compost of our barn, because the only reason some of that is actually composted is that it gets wet there. So it's like one section of our barn, and that has to be shoveled. So the rest of it needs pulled out and then composted correctly, which we can do with the tractor. Can't do that, you know, if you have to go buy compost or go pick it up from a farm where you might be shoveling it anyway, right? Like you don't want to necessarily have to shovel all that. So there's tons of ways to fill these buckets. You know, I could throw some of these leaves or cuttings from, which this one's full of caterpillar poop because I kind of ignored it and didn't pick caterpillars off. But I can throw that down in there, and like that caterpillar poop will actually help the soil. There's a couple other, oh, that one's still attached. I didn't cut that off. I can throw all that down in the bottom. Some of your food waste, so stems, because we're partway through the gardening season. So you can definitely do this to help with filling your buckets. Now I don't recommend putting like concrete blocks or bricks or gravel in the bottom, because you want things that are going to feed your soil first off. Second, these, like this can create, if it's sitting directly on the bottom, quite the hole for a bigger pool of water. And like I said, I want a small, shallow pool of water, but I don't want to create something so deep that you end up getting root rot. And rocks, they're a good way of doing that. They also are much more likely to plug the holes if you have a smaller rock, and actually preventing any escape of water from your containers. Granted, I have enough holes that's unlikely, but it can happen. And especially if you're somebody who's like, you know, I live in a dry climate, so I'm gonna have less holes because I want less drainage, right? And you do have to set your drainage for your climate. So these aren't recommended. And I know there's been some issues with compost. I've been seeing the reports. We're not having issues simply because nobody sprays over here. I literally haven't seen a single neighbor spray. The Amish don't. They don't spray because they do use their horses' manure and cow manure for compost all the time. Like, and then the English, or you know, us as the English Americans, I haven't seen any of our English neighbors spray anything on their fields. We did have our back neighbor lime last year. Totally different story. Like, oh no, a little bit of lime ends up on my property. It's good for the soil. So we've had pretty regenerative farming techniques out here, simply due to we have a naturally good topsoil. So grazing cows out here, which is what our neighbors to the south and east do. And then our Amish neighbors are to the west and to the north. So the Amish have a hayfield. They don't spray anything on it because they don't want to put anything on their gardens that'll kill it. And then really just the neighbors to the south and east don't do it. Are you literally going to spit up a hairball right next to me? I'm glad I'm your safe space. Did you just have to sneeze and cough? You better? Nope. I'm gonna move away before I get a hairball spit up on me. So yeah, that's not something we've been dealing with. I really do feel bad for you guys. If you're having trouble finding compost, you can use grass clippings, and you can also use like campfire ash. Best to use those together because this acts like lime and actually can lower your pH. So campfire ash. This is actually from our wood stove. They say actually campfires in particular, where you're using sticks rather than like pieces and chunks of logs, are better for the potassium. So you might find that that is your best bet on helping to get through this compost crisis. Because it's definitely a compost crisis. So if you can find soft logs and stuff, put that in the bottom, fill with regular soil, then try to get topsoil, which you're kind of careful with topsoil. Then find some compost if you know it's a very safe source. If not, leaves, ash, grass clippings, and then your own scraps. Especially like freeze them and get them mushy and then put them out there. They might break down a little faster. So that's hopefully going to help you guys get through this, because the compost crisis is kind of scary and just like unprecedented. Everything, it's like all the dominoes have fallen. You know, a kid walked through like a domino competition and like just ruined everyone's stuff, and like everything's crashing down, and it's just absolutely insane. So thanks for being with us today. I hope this helps you create your victory gardens. I hope you ask your questions in the comment if you have any. And I'm about to repot or reseed those pots. So if you have suggestions, I don't know what I'm planting in there yet. I have a bunch of tomatoes, thinking some more sweet corn, but maybe also getting ready for like a fall harvest.
There's a wasp behind you.
There's a wasp behind me.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. All right. If you want to follow along, hit that subscribe button and give us a like. I'll be praying for you. God bless.